have officially paid off $20,000 in 10 months. And the number one question I get every single time I talk about it is, how did I do it? How did you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? I'm gonna tell you. Number one.
Y'all please stop aggressively paying off debt, especially if you ain't got no money saved up. All you're gonna do is continue the cycle of paying off debt, and then something comes up, you use the debt that you just paid off to pay off to something that just came up.
This is the advice that I wish I could tell myself when I was getting out of debt in my 20s. And this is coming from someone that had $17,000 of maxed out credit cards. I had 6 of them. These are 2 of them. One of them is past due. I had a negative balance on my checking account and $1 in the other one.
I don't owe anybody anything, and it just is the best feeling in the world. It's so freeing. In January, my husband and I actually had $27,000 in credit card debt, and we are completely debt free. The only debt we have is our mortgage and his student loans.
I have officially paid off $20,000 in 10 months. And the number one question I get every single time I talk about it is, how did I do it? How did you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? I'm gonna tell you. Number one, I moved home. I moved back home. I am lucky enough to have parents who own their home. It's my childhood home. My childhood bedroom was still there. They welcomed me back with open arms. I know that that's not the situation for everyone, but that's my situation. I took advantage of it. I completely reallocated my rent budget to paying off my debt. So I used to pay about $1,800 in rent, utilities, fees, parking, all of that. I don't have to dig into my fund budget. I can continue to do everything else I was doing. I just had to live at home. The second thing that I did was I came up with a pay schedule. Every single time I get paid,
So guys, before she goes on any further, I want to touch on this because this is such a huge point. Let's be honest, it's a huge point. And so here's the deal. There's something called group economics. Group economics is when you essentially, let's just call it, for lack of better words, to keep it simple, split cost. You split costs with other people, whether that's your family, like in her case, like in my case, you move back home with your parents. And, you know, I always recommend if you live with your parents to help out with things around the house, pay for at least a couple bills or a bill, right? I know the point is to be home to save money and to invest. For her, she said she didn't have to touch her fund money. I'm not talking crap about her, but for me personally, if I was in her position, I would have reallocated all the money like she did, that she was paying for rent, pay off my debt, and then some of my fund money would have gone to helping out my parents pay a bill or two, or maybe part of the mortgage, just because that's what I would have done. And of course, she only had $20,000 in debt. Let's say she had $200,000 in debt. That fund money, that should be gone. Maybe you have a fund money that you use every 3 months or something to keep yourself sane, but the rest of that needs to go to paying off debt. But anyway, that aside, group economics, living with family. If you have a friend that you know you can trust and you actually know for a long time and you can live with and stand them and y'all won't lose your friendship, live with a friend or friends, have roommates. Even if you graduate college, instead of going to get your own apartment, a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, which drives me crazy, for when I have guests come over, silly. No, keep living with roommates. If you have a situation where you bought a house already and you're kind of in the mortgage, you can't get out of it because you can't sell it for what you bought it for, or maybe you just don't want to sell it, rent out rooms. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, but do it for a season. So that's kind of group economics. And that's what she was talking about with moving back with the parents. And I think that's a cheat code that a lot of us could use if we have debt and we want to get out of it. It's a harsh, I'll call it harsh because a lot of people don't want to live with someone else. I get it. Even I don't really want to live with someone else. I have a good relationship with my parents, so that was a different situation. And I have good friends I could live with too. Some people don't have that. Some people don't really have strong friendships like that, or they don't want to live with their friend. They want to potentially ruin the friendship, or they're not able to live with their parents or what have you. There's still ways that you can make this work. You can go rent a room instead of run 1-bedroom apartment. So yeah, I think group economics is one of those harsh things that a lot of us would need to do if we really are serious about paying off our debt, especially if we have significant debt.
I will pay half of all of my bills. At 7 o'clock every other Wednesday, I was paying the $1,000 to my Capital One bill every single time, period. Even if it's still pending, I don't care. I want everything settled by Friday so that I can go into the weekend knowing exactly how much is in it and I don't have to worry about anything going crazy. And that was just the easiest way for me. That's the way that my brain works. That just made the most sense for me. The next thing that I did was I got balance transfers. Basically, I had 0 interest for basically my whole debt payoff cycle. The next thing that I did, which is actually probably one of the most important things that I did.
So I want to touch on that really quickly as well. Balance transfer, she got new credit cards that had 0 interest for the first however long they give you a term. Let's say it's a year or 2, where it's 0 interest. She used that credit card. Again, she might have done it differently, but this is the idea of it. Use that 0 interest credit card to pay off the other credit cards you have that have interest that you pay every month. That way you have 1 year or more to where you can make payments on your debt without having to pay interest. So it allows you to accelerate debt payoff. It's a great strategy if you're someone who can stick to it and not use that new credit card to get new debt that you have to pay off in addition to the debt you already have. So that's something to keep in mind.
I created 2 emergency funds. So I always had an emergency fund, and I keep about 3 months of emergency bills in it. So that's like my baseline bills. That's rent, utilities, car payments, car insurance, period. Everything else I can figure out. But I always keep 3 months of my baseline bills in a high yield savings account. So instead of putting my money into my high yield savings account, I put it into a first line of defense fund. That's what I called it. So basically a first line of defense fund was an emergency fund, so that I didn't have to worry about touching my actual emergency fund. And I saved up about $2,000 and I left it in a savings account that was attached to my checking account, so that if I needed money quickly, I could easily move it over. Anything basically that happened where I needed extra money that I did not budget for, I took it out of my first line of defense fund so that I wouldn't have to dip into my emergency fund. The 2 most important parts of this whole thing is making sure that you have a plan and you have a routine, and the first line of defense fund. Because once you start dipping into that savings account, it's gonna go away. I didn't have to worry about going back into debt when emergencies happened, and I didn't have to worry about taking away from the progress that I had already made in my emergency fund.
Okay guys, so here's the thing with that. I like that. And this is good for certain people, right? We're all disciplined in different areas of our lives, more so than others, right? Some people are very disciplined when it comes to doing their homework. Some people are very disciplined when it comes to exercising regularly. Personally, I'm very disciplined when it comes to my finances. So I don't even really necessarily need this strategy she's talking about, but I understand that some people do. Actually, a lot of people do. Because what'll happen is you'll have an emergency fund, but if you look at that emergency fund all the time, that money's on top of mind and you think it's available to use for things that you don't necessarily need to use it for. So what her strategy does is she essentially has an emergency fund. If you think about it, it's like one big emergency fund. Let's call it $5,000, $6,000. But half of it's somewhere she's not looking at every day. It's in a savings account she doesn't really look at. And then the rest of it is attached to the savings account that's in the same bank, let's say, with her checking. So she does see that on a regular basis. And so she knows if she needs to, she can tap into that account. But she forgets, maybe not literally, but she forgets about the money in the other account, which is really the emergency fund for her. She needs it for essentials and necessities, so that the necessity account isn't used for things that aren't really necessities. I think that's a pretty good strategy. So again, that's another gem. And another harsh truth is that a lot of us don't have that discipline financially. It's a hard truth. It's a harsh truth. We just don't have that discipline financially. We're gonna get the thing we want, whether it's shoes, clothes, jewelry, vacation, what have you. And so you have to find different strategies, like a pay schedule, like a emergency one for your emergency fund, like moving back home with your parents, in order to keep yourself on track.
Y'all please stop aggressively paying off debt, especially if you ain't got no money saved up. All you're gonna do is continue the cycle of paying off debt, and then something comes up, you use the debt that you just paid off to pay off to something that just came up. I'm telling you this from experience. I'm telling you this from my personal experience. I'm telling you from the experience that I've had with clients that I've worked with. It's never a matter of if something happens, it's always when it happens, because something always comes up. You got a $3,500 debt, you done paid $1,500 of it off, but then here comes something that costs $800 and you ain't got it just laying around for an immediate issue. So now you got to go dip into that $1,500 you just paid off, get $800 of that. Now you almost back to square one. So instead, build your financial foundation on an immediate fund. Have you a small savings of $1,500 minimum, $2,500 max. So when those immediate issues come about, you got the immediate funds to pull from to take care of those, and you don't have to keep interfering with your debt payoff process. So in short, man, aggressively build you up a
So I think this guy is pretty much saying what Dave Ramsey says, which is get your emergency fund set first. I think that's baby step number one. You know, if you're not familiar, Dave Ramsey is like a financial guru, and he has these baby steps that is meant to get you out of debt. And there are 7 of them, I believe. And I think the first one is to get an emergency fund. I think he says $1,000, which a lot of people say that should be adjusted for inflation. That's a different argument. But that's what this guy is saying. Have $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, however much it is that you need as a foundation before you start to aggressively pay off your debt. Because if you don't, like he said, all it takes is one thing to happen. Like you need brand new tires, you know, and that's a $500, $600, $700 expense. Or your water heater goes out. You get the idea? So you want to have that emergency fund as a foundation. So I totally agree with that. And again, that's another harsh, it's not necessarily a harsh one, but this is, we'll call it a harsh reality, is that when you start your debt journey off, man, you can make some sacrifices because that money you may have used to do things that were fun that you enjoyed, like go to dinner every other weekend or twice a week. You might have to sacrifice doing that for a while to get that first emergency foundation set up to then start paying your debt off. And that's where the journey begins.
This is the advice that I wish I could tell myself when I was getting out of debt in my 20s. And this is coming from someone that had $17,000 of maxed out credit cards. I had 6 of them. These are 2 of them. One of them is past due. I had a negative balance on my checking account and $1 in the other one. But I was eventually able to pay off all of this debt in 1 year. And in 3 years, I more than tripled my income. There's nothing sexy about this video. I'm not going to ask you for a dime. I'm just going to tell you all the advice that my dad tried to give me, but I ignored. Make the hard decision now so that you can live an easier life in the future. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that meant for me and what it means for you. I was a teacher making $50,000 a year with $17,000 in credit card debt. There was no way that I was going to pay that off in a reasonable time doing what I was doing. And the hard decision was for me to leave teaching, leave my home state, and go to where the money is. I was a teacher in upstate New York teaching high school math. I left to go to New Jersey to get a high-paying sales job. I immediately doubled my income on the spot. 3 years later, I have more than tripled that income, all because I made the hard decision to leave my friends, my family, my now fiance, and go to New Jersey to get that money. Number 2, if your employer gives you a match on your 401k.
We gotta stop it at number 1 first because he's cooking right there. Harsh truth, harsh reality of becoming debt-free, guys. Let's be honest, you need to earn more money. The analogy that I hear used a lot of times is you need to increase the size of your shovel. Because if you make $50,000 a year, that's a decent sized shovel. But if you have a big pile of debt, that shovel's not big enough to make a dent in it, not anytime soon. So what you do is you go and you find a way to make more income. So you increase the size of that shovel. Maybe now you have a pickup truck or whatever you call those trucks with a big thing in the front of it that lifts the dirt. And now you have that because you have more income to make a bigger dent to pay off that debt a lot faster. That's exactly what he did. He tripled his income now. He went from $50,000 to over $150,000. He can pay off $17,000 a lot quicker with $150 a year than he can with $50,000 a year. And so again, sales is not for everybody. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to go into sales. But there's ways you can find that works for you and that would work for me to go and increase income. Even if it's making an extra $500 a month or $150 a month or $1,000 a month. That's increasing the size of your shovel to do a lot more work.
Max that thing out today. I didn't start investing until recently, and now that I'm 30, I'm trying to play catch up. But if I'd started when I was younger, at 21, 22, I would be in a lot better shape. 60-year-old you is going to thank you. Lastly, get very serious about your side hustle. You watching me online is my side hustle. This side hustle brings me $2,000, $3,000, sometimes $6,000 a month by making these videos. Find a hustle and do it. And for the love of all things good, stick to the thing long enough to see it actually make you some money. It took me 6-8 months before I saw a penny doing this thing. I almost quit time and time again, but my parents and my fiance always told me just stick to it. And now me making these videos for 15 minutes a day makes more than...
Okay, so his second point of advice, I would say I don't fully agree with. He was saying match the 401k. No, I take it back. I agree with it. Even when you're doing your debt journey, if you have enough money to do it while still making significant progress in paying off your debt, if it was me, I would try to match my 401k that my employer gives me because it's free money. You know, the match is essentially free money they're giving you to go into your retirement account. But aside from matching the 401k that your employer gives you and maybe putting money to your Roth IRA, I would say postpone, for me anyways, again, this is what I would do. I'd postpone, what I did actually, I would postpone adding money to my investment accounts until my debt's paid off. But what I did do is my employer already gave me money without me having to match it, so I didn't have to worry about that. It was for my 401k. But I did max out my Roth IRA each year while I was still on my debt payoff journey. So I would say that's something I did do. The third part of it is also very true, side hustle. His side hustle is making content online. I'm not sure what he does. I haven't looked at his account. I know he's making a TikTok video right now that I'm reacting to. I don't know how he's making that much money online, but hey, good for him. That's his side hustle. Your side hustle could be driving Uber. Your side hustle could be editing for someone, you know, video editing or copywriting or walking dogs or babysitting or whatever it is, getting a second job, part-time job, whatever your side hustle is, do that to earn more income, which ties into the first part of it, which is sometimes you need to earn more income and sometimes you just have to get uncomfortable. He moved locations. He physically moved himself. He said from upstate New York to New Jersey, which is not that far, but he moved himself. Sometimes you might have to move across the country if you need to increase your income to make a difference in paying off that debt.
I am 33 years old and today I just finished paying off the last of my debt. I am completely 100% debt free. Besides my mortgage, I don't owe anybody anything, and it just is the best feeling in the world. It's so freeing. In January, my husband and I actually had $27,000 in credit card debt, and we are completely debt free. The only debt we have is our mortgage and his student loans. And student loans are coming next. We're going to start paying on that, but we are on the journey of buying a new home and selling our current home. So after that is all done, then we will go hard again and start paying off his student loan debts. That's $100,000. But so stay tuned for that, because I will be coming on and probably sharing a little bit of that journey. My church actually hosts Dave Ramsey Financial Peace.
So first and foremost, congratulations to them for making this far. I will say that I wouldn't necessarily say that she should call herself debt-free since she's married. I think she said married, not fiance. And therefore that debt of her husband is also her debt. And that's $100,000 of debt. So I would definitely not say debt-free. I will say that you can call yourself debt-free to an extent if all your debt is just your mortgage. Because let's be honest, most of us are going to need a mortgage, which is debt, to buy a house. If I was in her shoes, I don't know her specific details of why she needs to move, but I would consider staying where I'm at. And instead of going to get a new house right now, just focus on paying off her husband's debt. And once that's done, then look for a new house. Because really, she's not technically debt-free. Again, not trying to steal her shine. That aside, what I included this for is because I say another harsh truth that we might not want to think about when it comes to paying off debt is doing it with a spouse. I think that two heads are better than one, two incomes are better than one, and sharing your space with a spouse reduces your expenses because now you can maybe split the cost of where you live, you can split the cost of food and bills. And so the US has now become very much a singles way of living. A lot of us are single, have our own apartments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, is just in there, just us in there. Maybe we have a dog or a cat, and it's just our one income, and that's it. Whereas if you do it with someone else, in this case, a spouse, you can dramatically decrease the time it will take you to pay off your debt if you and that spouse are of one mind. That's just the truth. And this is coming from someone who's single. I'm single, I paid off my debt by myself. I did some other harsh things that we talked about in the video, like moving home with my parents. And that way I was able to accelerate my debt payoff. But let's say I had a partner back then or a spouse back then, maybe I wouldn't move back with my parents. Maybe we would have stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment and split the cost and still paid off the debt fast. So I think that's something that we should probably think about. I'm not saying you should go find someone to date or to marry just to pay off debt, but it is a harsh truth that a lot of us are, and it's just very individualistic. US is already individualistic as it is to begin with, but a lot of us now are just being single longer. And again, if that's a lifestyle choice you want to make, that's fine. Again, I'm single and I'm in my 30s. So I'm not even like pointing fingers. I'm just saying I recognize that it can be a cheat code to pay off debt with someone else. That being said, guys, if you made this far in the video, I really appreciate you. These are the harsh truths about paying off debt and paying it off fast. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Feel free to give it a like and to subscribe if you feel so too inclined. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.